Well fellas, it's time for the 4.6's new forged engine to go back together. So here she is, all painted up. Y'all saw that color. It's like this nice caramel color to match my wheels. But we're gonna go ahead and turn it over here, get the crank put in, and start getting these rods and pistons put in. Here's our crank. This is a stock crankshaft that's been professionally balanced to make it better. I don't think we're gonna break this. People say that you should get the Cobra crank, but there's nowhere on the internet of this ever breaking, so I think people just do it for no reason. Well, fellas, let's get started. We got some bearings going in. Alright, here we go. Just finished up with the ARP hardware on the mains, got the side bolts in, cranks in, spins freely. Everything looks good. Well now we gotta get our rings and everything set up on our pistons, which are all installed. Everything looks good, and then we'll flip it over and start trying to drop these bad boys in. Well, all of them are in there, looking good. We got our updated pivot pins on the front. Those are big old hosses right there. Need to put the oil pump on the front, and we also need to torque a couple of these rod caps up. We don't have a crank bolt. I forgot this engine didn't come with one, so I'm going to have to go buy one so we can actually rotate the engine. Breaker bar in the back did not work good, as you can tell.
About busted one of them flex plate bolts.
We'll get that fixed up.
Yeah.
Well, fellas, all the pistons are in. Everything turns nice and smooth, as you can see. If you guys are building an engine or anything and you have any issues with spinning the engine, it's getting real hard, check all your rod bearing clearances. Make sure all your side-to-side main clearances, everything's good. Make sure you got all your rods in the right orientation too. Everything should spin nice and easy once all that's sorted. Now we need to put these heads back together, fellas. Everything is all cleaned up. All the valves have been lapped in. Also, everything's been ported out. As you can tell in there, everything's ported out. Exhaust, everything looks super clean. We're gonna go ahead and get these assembled, get all the springs back in them. For springs, I have a set of Supertech springs here. These are good for 600 lift and should hold some boost pressure. They have a lot higher seat pressure than factory. So we're gonna go ahead and get these unboxed, get the table cleaned off, and get assembling. Here she is. Heads are all put together, got the springs in. We got factory retainers and clips, so they should do fine. But everything else is aftermarket. Other heads done, that's the driver's side. So now we're just going to go ahead and get everything ready to go to get these heads on. We're going to put our head studs in first though, so we can slide the heads down on top. Well, the engine's studded, ready for some heads. We're gonna do a final cleaning right here on the head surface, just in case we got any of the ARP lube on it. And clean this gasket surface up, and then we'll be ready. Alright fellas, we got the heads on, not torqued down, we just slid them on, checking everything, making sure everything's right. Pretty much, next would just be timing set.
Time to mistime it.
But I guess that means it's time to show y'all the new cam that we got. Alright guys, here's our cams right here. These are the new ones. These are MMR Stage 3 turbo cams. Now these are essentially just a regrind of the CompCam 278 cams. These have 242 intake duration and 250 exhaust duration, which is 2 more on exhaust than the 278. They're also 0.05 lift, like lower. These are like 245 lift instead of 250. But yeah, we're gonna see how these run. I got these for a really good deal, so can't beat it. Here it is next to the original cam. You can see how the lobes are a lot more narrow on the original, and then they're really wide on the aftermarket cam. That's where you get the duration from. So we're gonna try to get these put up in here, get the cam gears thrown on, that way we can get this thing timed up. So we got our timing chain on and all of our guides here. We got to put our tensioners on, but before we put them on, we're going to be modifying them. So here's our left-hand tensioner here that we're going to be modifying. Let's go ahead and pull the pin out of it. So it's got this ratcheting mechanism here that we need to do some alterations to. So when you rev these things out really high, this tensioner thing, when it builds up a lot of oil pressure, will get stuck all the way at maximum, and then that will cause a lot of tension on your chain at normal driving conditions after you've done wide open throttle, and wear out your timing guides and eventually burn through them and destroy the chains. Also good to do this for two-step too, because they'll lock on two-step. So we're going to grind the first 3 teeth off and then put it back together. There we go. It's now time for us to put some exhaust on these things. We got these nice little set of compact shorties from OBX Motorsports. This is the only thing that I could find that's gonna fit in the Thunderbird. It's already really tight, and this was actually pretty cheap. There's like 160 bucks, so it's not bad. We cut the ends off and put a V-band flange on. It's gonna be way easier to connect and disconnect than what we have now. But we're gonna go ahead and mount these to our engine. And we're gonna use header bolts instead of studs like factory, just so we can make it easier to get in here, get all these on, looks nicer. Alright, our headers are on. They look pretty clean. You can see just how close those tuck into the side of the motor. I mean, they're only sticking out, what, 3 inches off the side? And then in the back, they're really tucked up right here against the back. I mean, there's really not much room there, and then here they're really tucked up as well. So this will help me squeeze it into the Thunderbird. Space is a pretty big issue in that car, so I think this should be fine. As long as it clears in line with these valve covers, it'll fit in between them strut towers. Let's go ahead and throw our Edelbrock intake on top just to see what it'll look like. And here we go, fellas. Here is our fully built forged 4.6, ready to make some serious power. Now there's a couple things still missing accessory wise and also on top of the intake. These are things I'm going to have to get an elbow for this, and then everything else is still on my motor in the car. So once we pull it, we'll swap stuff over onto this to get it fully ready to go in. But all the big work is done right here. Now our plan with this engine was originally to make a sheet metal intake for the top, which we're still going to try to do, but found this Edelbrock for such a good deal that we're just going to throw it on for the time being, which gives us more time to build out our sheet metal one. This will flow really well compared to a factory one. Big runners. I don't like that it has unequal length runners, but you know, it's the only intake we can get that's really aftermarket for these things. But for now, really, that's all we got on this thing until it's time to pull the engine out of the car and get the engine bay and everything ready for this. We're gonna be doing that later this month. Until then, hope y'all enjoyed. See you in the next video.